We're ready.
We're ready? Okay.
So group one. What's the name of our group? What do you think?
Look at that, Pete's friends.
Pete's friends.
Pete's friends.
Reference to the cat.
Okay. The first one says 3 things I learned. We have like 6 bullets or so. Students adapted well. Redirect was often and consistent. Teacher model was consistent. Attention was limited. They gave them time for students to explore items and their environment, considering that they were in a new setting and with new people. 2 things that we can adapt and revise. The schedule, for example, for Aurora, we felt needed to have more real-life objects or pictures of the objects, and we noticed that one of the teachers was taking pictures of their actual choices for the snack. And then the other was to reduce the object choices for Aurora at the table work, like it was a little bit busy and she was at a kind of a loss, is our opinion, of how much she needed to do. And for Chris, more time just to learn the process. I think he adapted very well. And then we talked about the questions that we still have, the idea of the parent to home collaboration. Here we're teaching all of this ideas and strategies, and wouldn't it be wonderful if mommies at home continued that little mini schedule, or let them do yes and no and choosing and so forth on their snack. So maybe that we could share out the choice board ideas with the families, the yes and no question and answers. It could be the simple visuals. Some families I know were interested in the AAC devices, maybe something smart they could use on their phone. They have their phone all the time. And that's what we love.
So you have some questions and some things that need to be answered and some ideas of some ways to adapt and make some changes on the schedules.
Right.
And you also shared a little bit more about your observation as far as Chris said.
I did notice that the patients to explore, say he loves music and he went and gravitated to that little electric guitar. It wasn't like the teachers were like, okay, that's over, you're moving, check your schedule and take it away. They let him hang on to it like a little transitional object until he lost the interest and then he moved on. So you didn't have the battle where Chris is like, I'm not letting go of this prized object at this moment. They just kind of let him ease into it. I think he even went to the sensory room with it. Did he walk out with it? So I commend that was, he needed the time. He was given the time, the patience, so that he could do it on his own accord.
You mentioned this in several different ways, and it is really critical to understand that our friends do require more time to process. And allowing them time to process reduces stress and anxiety, as opposed to pushing things forward. What does that do to you? When you're already stressed and somebody makes more demands, what do you? Does anxiety go up or does it go down? It goes up, exactly. So we must reduce the stress and help our guys be more organized. Is there any questions that anybody has for this group? Okay.
I just have one question in general. Having more time for the process because it was one-on-one, would it be different if a timer was used in order to be able to take the item away if you had other kids in the class?
I think initially, whenever you're introducing anything,
Right.
it has a high level of interest, like she was saying. And then, when we think about these things, we think about what we're ready to move on. But sometimes don't we spend more time in that, trying to get that thing away, setting that timer, doing all that, rather than just kind of maybe addressing it multiple times in the day and allowing them time to process.
I know
when you get into that.
And it's the question, I guess, is more like, let's say we're already in the middle of the year,
Yes.
they're training, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Well, and if I could add to because I want to add on top of what you said, what going into the school year, I'll be very honest. I saw the timers, I wanted to get one, and I wasn't quite sure how to work it, because I've never used those
Yeah.
time before. So I would have, if I'd had one of my timers like we've been using, just the
Yeah, just
visual,
the
I
same.
probably would have gotten that for different transitions, not necessarily to get the
Right.
that away from him,
Okay.
but just transitions in general. We didn't have any timers that we were using today. So definitely, yes,
I
timers
could-
work well.
Have a solution for that. YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube. I use it all the time on mine. And
Visual
there's a
timers.
timer for a dog, and the dog barks when it's time, and they love it. They love the timers.
And I think all timers and things like that also.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely timers.
Timers are great, and sometimes you even want to say, I'm doing this before, we're gonna set the timer, in 5 minutes, we're gonna put things away, go to the next.
Right.
But if they start with their, oh, yeah, negotiation, well, how many more minutes do you need?
Right.
So you can also go in with that, I'm gonna set it for 2 more minutes, and then when it's over, it's over. I
See,
noticed that Chris was doing like countdown, 5, 4,
Yeah,
3,
he was.
2, 1, so he's.
See, I don't like negotiate. I'm sorry, I don't. So, and I put it on the big screen, and they'll point, I point to it. How many more minutes do you have? The time's up. I'm sorry, time's up.
Somebody else.
And you go on to the next one, then it's somebody else's turn, then we switch. And that's why I have it on the big screen. And it's time's up. And of course, I'll be honest, at the beginning, oh yeah, they'll fight you, but as long as you're stern and you're consistent, and by the end of the week, I guarantee you, they will tell you it's time to switch.
Right.
They will tell you.
I think one of the things you have to bear in mind too, though, is when you're trying to develop a relationship
At the
with
beginning.
kids at the beginning, you're gonna be a little bit more flexible so that you can learn, increase that respect and mutual respect.
And I want to have like a praise report in there. So from my perspective of, viewing Lisa and Angela work with these students, how long is this student going to need with that particular object before putting that particular skill into place and fading it out? So we have to have that baseline. And that's what I feel that Angela and Lisa really did today. They established a baseline of how long Christopher needed that guitar and where we need to go to fade it out. So we have to establish that before we put strict boundaries on a student, because if you, like me, just thinking in my, like as an adult, if I have a boss that's doing that, oh man, I'm not gonna thrive. So thinking of a 4 or 5-year-old or even any student, we have to get that baseline and see if there's a consistent data factor in there before putting, this is where we wanna go. So I think that they did phenomenal with that, because Christopher wasn't, oh, I don't want to be with this lady. She's not going to give me what I want,
Even if I fell out of the chair.
Yeah. That was crazy.
You don't wanna miss
I
that.
gotta close this, before we go to next one. I want you to write down something now, and I want everybody to write it down too, please, and it's one word. But I don't want to go into it deeply now, because I want to go on respect the time and on to other people's, work. But it's called pairing, P-A-I-R-I-N-G, because everything that, because when I hear somebody say, I don't do negotiation, there's some emotion behind that, and there's some history behind that, and so I'm going to respect that. But I also want to go into research, because we're here as professionals looking at, we're educators first and foremost. We care about the safety and security of our students always. And I'm going to use what I know from research to make good decisions. And sometimes I let my ego or myself get out of that. So I'm going to come back to the word pairing, P-A-I-R-I-N-G, when we do our face study. So thank you so much, guys. That was
All right,
beautiful.
thank you.
Our alarms that are
Have
online.
it where you can put a warning so that it starts to blink before it actually makes the sound, which helps, because it interferes with
I
it.
just need to learn how to use y'all.
And also, just to back up on what y'all were saying also about like YouTube and a specific song, after you get your kids and you've had it for a while, and they're cued in to hear that song, they're gonna automatically start clearing up. But, pairing is, we're gonna talk more about that for you people that are online and participating. You might not have heard that whole conversation, but we're gonna revisit that again in just a minute. For our second group,
You're next. I think we get next one.
Shelley, you talk, I'll hold it. The three things we said we've learned is, we have to be flexible. We noticed how flexible y'all were as far as things were not going bam, 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 how we kind of talked about it, so you had to be flexible. So I think that was something important that we learned, you just have to be flexible. That schedules worked, and that the flow of the classroom worked, and how you had that said, that's something that we learned. The things we can adapt or revise,
Or the timers, we talked about the timers.
correct.
Boundaries were needed, more music and movement needed in the morning, and then safety for the bubbles. We were talking about the bubbles, because y'all were doing with the bubbles, and with us, if the bubbles, they pop and they go on the floor, and so it gets slippery. And so there's no carpet in there. So we were talking about the bubbles on that part. I wouldn't use bubbles because of, in a classroom. Now, I would use it outside,
Right.
but I wouldn't use it in the classroom because even us, it would be slippery for us. Because as soon as you, so as soon as you step on it, boom, you're.
Well, we could have carpet in a sense.
And you can do a carpet.
Because we do bubbles all the time, but it's usually.
And
on
you
the
can
carpet
do,
there.
but I was just thinking because there was no carpet in there.
We were looking at thinking, oh gosh, nobody, I was with you, you're gonna follow the bubbles.
No, we know who it is.
Yeah. And that was just because we were observing the situation now, okay? So then, the questions we still have, we didn't know if there was a welcoming or introductions at the
We
beginning.
missed that part.
I don't know if there was, because the internet wasn't
Yeah,
working.
there was.
Yes, there was.
Okay, so we didn't see that.
Well, we'll try to make it even better.
And then seating arrangements, we didn't see where there was any seating arrangements for the kids.
Right, with a clear
Like,
expectation of where they're supposed to
Where
be.
it's for snack time with their names on it, and
Don't do that, I don't know. Kind of just little pick a space.
and
They
then
know
call it
that's
their own.
Space, right, and a friend chooses that space tomorrow, they know it's okay to go sit in the other space, it's not. We don't do that battle at that age, I don't anyway.
You know, it's very interesting that you said that because, you know, as you think, we're talking about a classroom of students with preschool, and you are also teachers of secondary and other grade levels. And, you know, thinking as you think forward, teaching and having flexibility is so important as you go through life. And, you know, as we use systems with our kids to help them become more independent, so they can be more system dependent rather than people dependent. We're doing our kids a great favor because those systems can change over time. But what we don't want for our kids is for them to become adult dependent, right?
Like Sheldon, that's my spot.
The more adult dependent kids are, the lower their quality of life. And so as we think through what we're doing all the time, thinking about teaching strategies, teaching systems that can become a part of their life so that they don't depend on us as much, because we're not going to graduate with them, right? And having that flexibility, you can sit wherever you want, because then the reality is when you go to a restaurant, you can sit where you want. That's okay.
But not necessarily, because if there's a hostess, they're gonna sit you where you need to go.
But you can still
So-
say, no, I don't want to sit there, and they move you.
Yeah,
And then,
You could still-
I'm just
It
saying,
works for
like,
us to have like.
As the year goes
designated
on, the children pretty much decide where they're most comfortable with. So then that's when they get, okay, you know, this is my. spot.
Right.
Somebody's
See, when they
sitting
get-
on their seat,
but
they're autistic, they're gonna have a heart attack.
Actually, we really haven't had that.
We
problem.
have.
well,
And once you get to middle school,
Yeah.
for me, and I teach middle school, that's their seat, and if we let them choose, they're gonna sit over here with their friends, and they don't have to do anything, and it don't matter, because we're over here talking, and we're over here talking about that game
So
or whatever,
it's-
you know.
I mean, it trickles down because I know, like for my classroom, I put their names on them. And they know that's where their name is going because I need to prepare them for when they go to bed.
That's great, because you do have a system, because you have a name tag. So but just keep it in mind that there's more than one result at the end of the rainbow, and there's more than one way to fry fish, but
I
there's one
kind
way.
of look at it this, we start with the little bitty, so we're starting the basics.
Right.
Where they know they need to sit down on the carpet.
Right.
And then we build on that. So
Right,
hopefully
right.
by the time y'all get them, they know, okay, you're gonna put me somewhere and they're comfortable with
And we're
Yes,
happy that they
definitely.
sit to eat.
Yes.
They roam with their food at home, so if they sit and this is the place they want to sit today, great, they're sitting
They're
to
sitting.
eat.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And then we had a question about the sensory room. Isn't it, when they go to the sensory room, it's free reign where they just get to go and that's where they get to,
I think we talked about this yesterday, maybe we missed some of that, but when we were in the sensory room, we talked about the importance of communicating and consulting with your OT about specific activities that they can participate in each of the, using the different equipment in there, and what specific activities or equipment would be best suited to support each individual student, because their sensory diet is going to be different based on what their individual needs are. And when you have a free open sensory room, you can end up with them over-regulated. You know, they can have they could be revved up to the max because they're doing a behavior that's having an adverse effect on them. So the whole purpose of a sensory room is to help them reach homeostasis, which is that even spot where they're able to learn. So it's definitely not free range.
I think what we were really going for is like to introduce it to them, to get them familiar with the
To see what they like.
Yeah.
and their-
and then introduce the choice board.
Choice board in the sensory room?
We did.
But
We
like,
did have a choice board,
They have-
and we've had struggled with some of our labels getting in place and having the Velcro to receive the labels and also teaching that concept. So that's just layers that we're working on. We hadn't quite got there yet, but that's the beautiful thing about today, is we'll have an opportunity to do so.
well, I think it was the roaming too. We got to miss a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That was in there. So.
Did you see me fall a couple times?
No.
No, just when you were just on the chair, that was it.
Thanks, that little blue chair. And then thank you so much.
So, did y'all know, I was curious as to what y'all were thinking, like one of them didn't go. That little girl, she was kind of everywhere.
Right.
It's like trying to redirect her. Is that the norm?
Yes, that is the one.
Yeah. I'll look at her. Is that like the norm to expect the same out? I've never done little ones, so it is the expectation.
Okay, we have our little beautiful. Mr. G, they're playing it. They can't do it without you, Mr. G. She's taking his notes.
All right. So things we learned, the teacher proximity to the student while they were learning, that y'all were always really kind of close by. Y'all never left the area. Y'all just kept them kind of there and kind of.
Like, I don't know if you were doing it on purpose, but your proximity to Chris while you're working on a particular item, you were close to him, so he felt he had sort of a boundary of not getting up. He felt secure a little bit.
So I was using my body for physical
Yeah,
structure.
and
But it worked.
but it wasn't bad, because, I mean, there was times when we were kind of like keeping that space. So that really helped, and then I saw a lot of spatial awareness with Miss Lisa saying, okay, Aurora's gonna do what she needs to do, and I'm just gonna kind of be here for her to help. So that was really good. Let's see, transitions were really good. I mean, they were getting all the visuals, you were taking them back and forth, okay, we're doing this, and they're showing this, to move from one place to another, and definitely meeting the needs of the child. You know, you didn't get in their face and was like, hey, we're doing this now, you're coming with me, or, you know, kind of dragging them. It was real natural looking. I didn't see any tantrums. I wish I would have saw some, but I didn't see any.
We're so glad.
But that's good. And of course, one size doesn't fit all, right? So saying that through all this, saying that you need this or you need that, that really shouldn't play a part in this, because everybody teaches different, and we, you know, again, it goes with one size, you know, it doesn't fit all, right? Patience was huge. Getting to know the kids in the beginning, and you know, they're having, and it's a new space, they're coming into like brand new areas, centers, a really nice classroom setup. Let's see, that kind of goes with here, and then go ahead.
So things we can revise. So I noticed, so Chris's love of the guitar, I was thinking that maybe instead of this picture, we could use a guitar as his transition marker. That's something he kind of clinged to. Maybe more incorporating more songs in the day, since they both have a love for music. Kind of maybe a cleanup song. I noticed cleanup was kind of
And we noticed, like, where I heard, as Aurora was in the restaurant, I heard somebody singing, and you could hear her level of kind of, you know, being in distress, that she's in there, just kind of stop, and then the singing was over that. So that
We
was,
constantly do have the verbals in the back.
yes, yeah,
How's your family today? What's in the alphabet?
Right.
What's in the numbers? It's a constant conversation with the child.
yeah. And with song, it just kind of like, boom,
Yeah.
she,
she
oh,
was
I like
calm.
this. I'm gonna think about the song instead of what I'm, you know, having a hard time going through right
I
now.
sing to her all the time.
Yeah,
But I sing to her all the time.
We put use of timers question mark, but it was already answered, you know, that's all. Some kids need it, some don't. I mean, I don't have little ones. I have little ones, but I have like K through 5. So my older ones, I can now, you know, verbally say, okay, you're gonna do this, or they take their little timer and say, okay, I'm gonna go to class, you know, for the designated time, because most of mine are at least restrictive. So they will take a timer with them and they have it on their
Oh, good.
desk. So
So
they,
you're teaching them to use systems.
yeah. So, and they like them, and I'll say you can take it or you do not have to take it. It's up to you, because like in the class where they took all the clocks away, and there's a few that it drives them crazy. So the parents got them watches, thank God, you know, so that they can, you know, they follow their schedules to the T.
And then we just said places for their backpacks, their lunch boxes and sippy cups.
It's behind the door.
There's hooks.
Oh,
Yeah, there's
Okay,
hooks behind the
okay,
door.
gotcha.
So if y'all can point that out for a second. Did you want to add something?
Oh, I was just talking about the singing. I don't know if you could hear it.
Yeah.
But she does this fabulous thing of turning directives into songs.
Yes.
And it just,
Therapy.
yes, and it just,
And
I mean, you can see the anxiety just
Right.
reduce.
And her hand washing song
Yes.
is like, yeah.
And that's what I was hearing, you know, it just, she went from here to
And she was
here, and all you heard was the singing, and that was really, really nice.
And we use those transitions all the time. Line up, everybody line up.
Well, it's all upkeep
Or
to keep
we're
the
walking down the hall. Always. And they kind of like look at me like, I'm not doing it. Let me put my song on.
But they will be by the time you get through.
Well, and you know, music plays such a huge role in life in general, and, you know, sometimes, you know, I remind teachers, why don't you play some music while they're, you know, trying to get the kids to be mellow or do a test, or, you know, if it's just real low in the back, you know, and it helps to calm them down sometimes.
My
Music
kids beg for
really
that
good.
coffee house music, just that background.
Yeah,
Hey miss, we're doing our math. Can you put the music on? Sure.
yeah.
That's great.
So, let's see.
Questions?
Okay, so it was, I mean, we're going back with the sensory room, you know, I guess more clarification for me was like, okay, we can use it as a break. I'm assuming, or actual sensory, because I get a lot of, you know, tantrums or meltdowns, so,
I'd like to get some input from others here, for sure, but the importance of having guidelines for your sensory room is very important. And I'm gonna turn this over to the powers that be that have, but we're finding really hard to get space
yeah,
in our schools for sensory rooms.
right.
And there is research to support the need and how it should be used. So I think it would be a good idea for us to all have a good understanding, you know, what it is for, what it's not for, and how it's to be used, so that we can advocate for that for our kids.
We have a sensory room now. Well, we had a sensory room between our two classrooms at Cunningham and South Park. And that sensory room between the two, which was a life skills, and it turned into a sensory room. When it was in between the two classes, it was more of a behavior area. When they misbehaved, they put them in there. so it didn't disrupt the class and a person would stay with them. Then we got a real actual sensory room down the hall a little bit, and that's not used in the same way. That is used, they know a certain time of the day, it's in the schedule, we're going to the sensory room at this time. So they know they want to behave, they want to make sure they finish their work, they want to do the things to get to go to the sensory room. And they love it in there. We've had 0 misbehaviors in the sensory room.
I'm gonna turn it over to Kimmy.
Okay.
It's used for both, because sometimes when they're having that tantrum and stuff, they need that extra jumping or something, so they settle down. And then we do have.
But all of your strategies need to be taught during the calm times, and that we're not in response to behavior.
We're lucky that
Then
we
they'll act
haven't had
up
to use it for
because they know you're gonna take them.
Right.
And I think, Lisa, you might have mentioned that yesterday when we were in the sensory room, that some of this, we're gonna have to, push the refresh button on. Because we've kind of gotten in the habit of doing things a certain way for whatever reason. But now that, when you know more, then you can do more with what you have.
It's
But you don't always do better when you know better, so that's why I didn't say that.
Because when
I learned that. I used to love to say that, but I've learned it takes me and others sometimes a little bit longer, even though I know better. I know I need to exercise. I know I need to water my grass, but I might not do it. So we want to take the opportunity to kind of refresh when it comes to thinking of not only the sensory room, but how we access it or how our kids access it. So we need to look at, like I was saying the other day, how we approach our related service personnel. It may not be for OT, PT, speech, music therapy services, but you may need that support for knowing how to implement it. And you said it at the beginning when we talked about, let's incorporate more music. Does that mean to have a longer social time or morning meeting?
No.
That, you made it key. It's a